club, I'd like to welcome our guests from the ACM Club as well as from State Farm to the College of Business. This event marks the beginning of a hopefully long and successful collaboration between our two clubs, and hopefully we'll host events like this in the near future. So yeah, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guests from State Farm who have generously agreed to speak and who have graciously provided the food. So please help me welcome these guys.
I'll introduce real quick. So I'm Sumit Verma. I'm one of the IT manager at State Farm and also campus manager. And I see a lot of familiar faces, people I've seen in the previous event. So good to see you guys and enjoy this partnership with NAU. And Dave, he's an architect at State Farm, and he goes by Hoppy, because his last name, as you can see, is hard to pronounce. I don't feel bad for him, because it happens to me all the time. People can't get my name right. But we got a pretty neat topic that hopefully will incite some more interesting question on your side from the security perspective, and that's the space Dave's in right now from one of the applications that we manage. But after the presentation, both of us will be here, talk to you more about opportunities, our program that we have around internships, future internships, and even co-ops. May not be as suitable considering the distance between Flagstaff and Tempe, but there's always possibilities. So talk to me after this, and anything you have, Dave,
Yep.
floor is yours.
Okay. So thanks again for having us back. A little bit different presentation this time. Last time I was here, I think it was on analytics. So talked a lot about how we use the vast amounts of data that we have. What I want to talk about tonight is a little more germane to the area that I work in. So I work in, we call it customer identity management. So it's the area where when you purchase a product and you want to start seeing your information online, you go in and register on statefarm.com. It's my teams are the ones who are helping vet you are who you say you are. So we've got relationships with vendors that we use. We do some work internally to make sure that when your information was captured when you purchase a product, it's correct and accurate. So tonight's topic is about biometrics with FIDO. Anybody know what FIDO stands for? It's not a dog's name. Well, actually, it is a dog's name, but fast identity online. So it's a way of using biometrics. So biometrics, fingerprint, face, retina, that kind of stuff to secure your online identity. So that's the topic of tonight. And these slides are really slow because there's a ton of pictures on them, unfortunately. There we go. So just a snapshot of somebody's statefarm.com account. But so the big issue is who has access to your accounts. We've all read about all the breaches that occur. So I guarantee you, your ID and password are floating out there somewhere. If it's an ID and password you use on multiple sites, probably a bad idea. Because if you used it at Target or pick the big data breach, then there's hackers out there that are using your ID and password on every financial services site they can try. And if you've got an account with Chase or with Bank of America or with State Farm, and you're using the same password that you used at Target, they're going to be able to log into your account potentially. So what we're trying to do is use biometrics, especially from the mobile perspective, use biometrics so we're no longer using an ID or passing an ID and password around. So does that make sense? So they're called credential stuffing attacks. It's a way of basically taking your credentials that are floating out there and just trying them over and over again on multiple sites. So the hackers will write a script, and they call it a bot attack, excuse me, where they will just script in to all of those sites the IDs and passwords that they've either purchased or retrieved from some other, stolen from some other site. Does that part make sense? Okay. So that's really what we're trying to protect, right? So we're trying to stop that hacker from coming in and using your credentials to get into your account without you knowing about it. So a couple of kind of basic things to start with. So we already talked a little bit about biometrics. So right, fingerprint, face, voice. I'm not a big fan of the voice biometric, but people are using it. It's really to get to a multi-factor authentication. So a multiple factor, so there's either something you know, which is your ID and your password, something you are, which is your biometric, or something you have, which most of us have one of these. So in order to get into a site that requires multi-factor authentication, you've got to have at least 2 out of the 3. So you either have the ID and then you've got your fingerprint, or if you have an ID and a password, you can set up what we call 2-factor authentication. We're gonna send you a verification code to your device. So then again, it's something you know, which is your ID and your password, and then something you have because we know the device, so we're gonna send that verification code to the device. Now, anybody who's using biometrics today, so if you use your fingerprint, Touch ID either on Samsung or use Retina on here, it really isn't quite as secure as what we're working towards. So like in our case, when you use your fingerprint, like on iOS or on Samsung, all that's stored is, it just associates your fingerprint to that ID and password. So when we're still doing login from our State Farm mobile app into the back-end services, we're still using ID and password. With biometrics, that goes away. So now it's all key-based. So I'll get into that here in a second. So a couple of big benefits. One is it's everybody knows how to do it, or most everybody does, because a lot of people are already doing it because they're using their fingerprint or their face to unlock their phone. So that's the low friction piece down here. So it's fast, easy, simple. But because biometrics use the private key, public key handshake, the transport layer is secured that way. So instead of passing the ID and password, you're passing keys. So if somebody gets a hold of that key, it doesn't do them any good, because you've got to have the private key, public key connection between your device and the vendor that we're using on the back end to actually do the authentication for us. So any questions there? Okay. So I kind of talked through all of this. The one piece I haven't talked about it is in industry standard. So Fast Identity Online, FIDO, is a consortium of, I think it's about 250 vendors that all agree to adhere to the same kind of standards. And so there's actually already products out there. We've got one in test mode right now that we're working with that uses AWS on the back end. So, I guess it's actually, 300 solutions, 250 members. It's really all tied to this Universal Authentication Framework, UAF. What companies are actually trying to get to, I struggle with this, is they're actually trying to get to the point where you'll never have an ID and a password. I mean, I use a password keeper, I'll admit it, because I'm smart enough to use a different password on every site, but I never remember them. So I'm either going to have to go through forget password every time I go onto that site, or guess a few and then go through forget password, or I use a password keeper. So don't tell anybody. I don't have any of my work stuff in there, I will say that. It's all my personal stuff. So just a little bit on how at least in our particular case, how the architecture is set up. So we've got an SDK for both Android and iOS. Those are the devices, the operating systems we support. So what it really boils down to is, this is the SDK we got from the vendor. That's not ours. It plugs into our app. Dayon is the vendor we're using. IdentityX is the name of their biometric solution. The others on here, the red pieces, are the ones that we're going to support. So these are the eventually support. So we're starting, so like with Android, we're starting with fingerprint, is it? You can do, the vendor supports all these different authenticators. So you could actually have it where you talk to your phone and it unlocks it. You can do a PIN. I honestly don't know what silent authenticator is. I'll just be honest. Obviously face, pattern, fingerprint. Our vendor right now does not support Retina, but that's something else that, because the Samsungs and probably other phones, yeah.
How does the face authenticator work? Does it go by depth, or does it just go by the image?
It'll depend on the device. So whatever the device supports, so the new iPhone it will use whatever those data points are that the device supports. So those are, they call them native authenticators, so they're built into the device. So obviously, some devices don't even support that. So it's based on both the operating system and the device.
So some devices might be more secure.
Correct, yep, it's all, yep, it really depends on the hardware and what the authenticator, or what the biometric is for that device. Because yeah, people have said, even the Apple stuff is not, it doesn't work for twins, doesn't work for siblings in some cases, and I think there was one I saw where it was a mother and a son who looked close enough alike that it didn't work for them.
Yeah, and I've tried that with my kids, and they get the same thing. They look a lot like me, and it does not work. And even if I'm like, say my eyes are closed, it will not work. I want to make sure that I am actively engaging in authentication.
So that's a good, just kind of, because it's actually not part of the presentation now that you bring that up. So one of the things, at least that the vendor we're working with does have, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna ask you, so are you using this vendor for the multi authentication? Like the user can choose which two they want to use, or does it depend on like their OS that they can all choose for them, like, or?
So I'll kind of get to that, but the short answer is, so from a multi-factor perspective, we're really not using the vendor for that. We're using this vendor specifically for biometrics.
Okay.
That just happens to be one of the factors in a multi-factor environment. So now one of the things I want to talk about is, so the vendor does have, they call it liveness tests. So you have to blink, or you have to somehow move so that it's not like you can have literally a dead person there, and if you're doing face, for example, you've got to see them blink. You can set it up so that you have to do that, so that it's, you're not unlocking somebody's phone because you just shot them, and now you're getting into their phone because their face is there. So it's
Or even a picture, or something, you can hold a picture in front of it.
Yep.
I won't lock it.
Yep.
Unlock it for you.
Yeah, so there are some interesting things that the vendors have thought of that some people probably haven't. And so it's good that, it's part of the reason why we work with vendors that we do, is they're a little bit further out than we are with a lot of this research. So concept's the same for iOS. In this case, we're going to implement both face and fingerprint, since we've got a number of customers and employees who have the new iPhone that does the face. So this is what's on the device itself. So this is how that is architected. So extremely high level. So there's the Relying Party app, that's our app. You see their SDK, the FIDO SDK is sitting in there, and the authenticators are sitting there on the device. We've got, on our side, we've got a server-side application. So they're using REST to make that server call to our application. We almost function as a pass-through to the IdentityX server, which in our case is hosted out on AWS. And the next slide gets into this a little bit more, but so this is just some of the technology behind this architecture. This one comes up, there we go. So this is kind of how the handshake occurs. So I get onto my device, I start up the State Farm mobile app, I use my fingerprint. What's happening then is there is a key that is sent through our service to AWS, to the IdentityX server. So that's that request challenge. There's a return that's sent back that they are going to verify that the key matches. And then we actually do the signed challenge goes back and says, yep, we got it. And then that FIDO authentication piece at the bottom is really the response coming back from FIDO or from Dayon, that yes, this, not only did we get the challenge, we also got a valid response back. So behind the scenes, that's what's occurring when you use your fingerprint, for example, to unlock the State Farm mobile app. The cool thing is your ID and password have not been exchanged anywhere in this. Neither has the biometric. So the biometric itself stays on the device in the key store. So it's all secure, in the secure store on the device itself. All that's exchanged are keys. So if somebody were to get one of those keys, they really can't do anything with it because it's a private key, public key exchange. So you can see that on there. You see the device has got the private key, the public key is sitting in the cloud. So those things have to match in order for this handshake to work and for the app to be unlocked. I don't want to say it's unhackable. I don't know as the vendor would say that, because I'm sure somebody somewhere would say challenge accepted and would probably try to get in there. But it's about as secure as it can be. We've actually been having internal conversations about, so today, so if you log on to statefarm.com, I think it's every 6 to 12 months your password expires. Even if you're in there every day, it will expire. With this stuff, is there really a reason to expire it? Because there is no ID or password that's passed back and forth. So it probably doesn't need to expire. People get new phones often enough, you've got to re-enroll, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. But you got to re-enroll when you get a new device, because the key is generated for that specific device. So it really is probably about as secure a way to get into a mobile application. FIDO is also actually working on a web-based, so some laptops have the fingerprint reader. Obviously, most of them have a camera. They're also working on a spec that you could actually use it for a laptop as well, rather than just doing it off a mobile device.
And one thing that Dave mentioned earlier about the private key or your biometric piece never leaves your device, and that's kind of industry standard, because if your password is compromised or your ID is compromised, you can always change it. If your fingerprint is compromised because it was sent to a server, now you can't really change that. Same with any of your or all of your biometric data. So, and that's kind of a underlying requirement. All of the implementer of this protocol enforce and make sure they follow that.
So now going to how we're implementing it. So I don't have our test devices, so I can't show you live demo, and it's actually kind of dumb in a situation like this. But so the first step is so you're going to create a new account. So this is your original login to statefarm.com, or in this case on the State Farm mobile app. So it's really that, you just created your account. That's about all there is to that. So all that did was set up your online presence. So you now have, we call it a B2C ID, so a business to, B2C, business to customer ID that we've created that maps your policies and accounts to you. So now what you want to do is actually register the biometric. So you've got two options, again, depending on the device, you got two options. You can either use Touch ID or you use Face. So for Face, and these are really screenshots, that's Dana, one of the guys I work with. This is him doing the sample app. So I don't know if you've seen the iPhone 10. It's got the the little bubble around it. Dayon, this is their version of that. So this is the Dayon SDK running on the device, capturing the biometric. So I want to stop there for a second, let that sink in. So this isn't, you use it to unlock your phone, let's say. You've got to recapture your face using their SDK. Okay? The next step is it does its analysis, figures out all the data points it's going to store, creates the hash that it's going to store, obviously stores the biometric in the key store, but then stores the hash in our database. And you're enrolled. So Face is enrolled. If you want to use it to authenticate, since you're only enrolled in Face right now, that's the only option you have. You click on that, the little bubble pops up, you put your face in there, and you're good to go. You're in the app. Fingerprint works basically the same way. So all you're doing is registering your fingerprint, so you've got to, touch your fingerprint or your thumb, whichever one you're using, on there multiple times. It captures that fingerprint, ties it to that B2C ID, and you're good to go. And same thing from an authenticate standpoint, you click on Touch ID instead of Face, you unlock it. So that's really about it. I mean, that's how simple this stuff is. Now you're good to go for, again, unless we decide to put some kind of expiration date on there, as long as you have that device and it hasn't been compromised. So one of the things that we look for and that the vendor looks for is if it's a rooted device. You're not going to be allowed to use biometrics if it's rooted. We've got to be able to trust the security of the device itself before we'll let any of that stuff pass through. But yeah, so short of that, you really, or if you've got some issue with your fingerprint or your face, you should be good to go. If you do have an issue, let's say, and I don't know if glasses make a difference or not, but let's say you get glasses and you want to re-enroll, you can always unenroll and re-enroll. It's no different than, I don't have those screenshots, but yeah, there's a unenroll. So if you, for some reason, let's say you don't want to use face anymore, you only want to use fingerprint, there's just a way through the app. If you go into that, the authenticators, yeah, you can go in there and you would be able to unenroll whatever authenticators you have, or if you want to unenroll all of them and start using ID and password again, that will still be there. Again, ultimately, we're trying to get to the point where ID and password are irrelevant. We've got some experimentation going on internally for laptops where I don't have my badge on me, but where your badge is then used to actually log into your device, and you no longer have an ID and a password. If you don't have your badge, you can't get onto your laptop. It's as simple as that. So that was really it. I know I kind of blew through that. I wanted to keep it fairly high level. Yeah.
So if someone goes on there, they try like the face 10 times or something, it denies them every time, is it gonna just lock them out and like send maybe like a message to the account owner?
It can. I think that part is configurable by the user. From our perspective, we know it's secure, so
Yeah,
you know
as
it's
long as the wrong person's not getting it,
correct.
it doesn't matter.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
And just to kind of re-emphasize that a lot of you probably have your devices that enable fingerprint and face print for you to connect to not just the device but other apps too. Like you can log into most of your banking apps, and I use my iPhone X for any of my banking apps, and it uses my phone. But behind the scene, it's not using FIDO. It's converting my face and remembering my password and ID and sending that on the connecting website or an application. But this is different. So it's not just using password and your ID anymore. But it's sending a key, a secure key that can only be public and private key model there.
Yeah, that's really the main, that and the multi-factor aspect of it. So it's something you are and something you have. Yeah.
For the biometrics, do you plan on using the vendor for the rest of it, or do you guys plan on producing something in-house of your own?
No, we'll continue to use the vendor for any biometrics we decide to enable. One of the things that we've talked about, because some of them, so that SDK, there's a different, I guess, module for every different biometric. And one of the things we're fairly cognizant of is we don't want to have this ginormous app that you have to download. So we're really looking at what are the ones that are most common, and obviously fingerprint and face are two of those. We've even struggled with things like PIN, because PIN just isn't that secure to start with, and so do we even really want to bother adding that as an option? But yeah, that part is up to us, but we are using the vendor's SDK for each one of them. So, yeah.
As far as biometrics goes, in terms of, in the subject of facial recognition or some visual cue, are you limited just to your face, or can you just do your eye or a nose or an ear?
That's a good
All those-
question.
All those parts are unique in each person.
Right. I honestly don't know if you looked at like when we did the registration piece. So this step, I don't know what would happen if you just hold it up to your ear instead. I honestly don't. That's a good question. I don't know if it looks for literally the outline of a face, to see that it's actually a head you're taking a picture of.
I think iPhone does that same. I'm pretty sure that this would do the same thing too, because it got the general model of a human face, and it's looking for basic characteristics to make sure you have those. You can't just put it on a
Yeah.
kind of a.
Or have your dog, show your
Yeah.
dog's face. So your dog has to be with you every time. I guess that would be 3-factor authentication.
So right now, is this just being demoed at State Farm? Is it not live yet?
It's not live. We're actually, so we've got our stuff, the back-end services are in production. So the area that I'm in supports that stuff. So the interaction, let me go back to that one. This is good. So the all the cloud stuff is there, and that red layer, which is the stuff that my team supports, is all in production. What we're waiting on now is the mobile app. We just plug for the State Farm mobile app. We just implemented a new, so it's no longer called State Farm Pocket Agent. It's now called the State Farm mobile app. That went out, I think, in December. At least on Android. I don't know if I went iOS.
It's on iOS
Okay.
now.
So they were so focused on getting that work done the end of last year that they didn't have time to implement the SDK and the authenticators. So they're working on it. I would say probably this summer is when we'll start using this. Would be my guess.
Do you have any plans for any future developments, R&D, and any other types of biometrics?
We're working closely with the vendor, so I would say the short answer is probably yes. I just don't know enough about what their plans are and what our plans are, again, especially from the mobile app perspective, because each new biometric is something that we've got to get a module from the vendor to put in the SDK.
And I can speak a little bit more on that. So I used to be part of the R&D department before in my current role, and we're always looking at new and upcoming technologies that are getting ready for the prime time. So our research and development, they continually look at new technologies, partner with the vendor, and some of the work, I don't know if this actually came from R&D's initial recommendation, because we have a lot of secure software that our experts in the industry are creating, and we want to be the best at what we do, from insurance and also some of our mobile apps. And we can't be an expert on each and every new upcoming technology, so we rely on our vendors all the time for that, and see if the product that they are building, is it ready for prime time, is it getting close to it. We do quick prototyping on that, and if it is, then we partner with our business areas within the company and say, okay, this technology is right for use, and here's our prototype, see how you can incorporate. So we do a lot of, there was another one we did recently with our call center. State Farm being a large company, we have thousands and thousands of calls that come every day, and we want to make sure the person we are authenticating who's on the other end of the call is the right person, not somebody frauding and saying they are somebody and they're not. So we got multiple checks in there too, that it's again a vendor app that we partnered with. They look at it and see, give each call a score, kind of a risk score, saying that, okay, based on where this call is coming from, this policyholder is, say, in California, and I see this call is coming from China, based on the phone or location of the phone it can detect, and all the other factors sound like it should say that the phone says it's coming from a cell phone, but looking at all the other parameters of the data that's coming on the voice, looks like it's a VoIP call set up on your computer. So it's got multi-factors in there to identify that kind of stuff, and then our rep on the other side can see, okay, I need to be a little bit extra scrutiny on this call, make sure the person is who they say they are. And we partner with a lot of vendors all the time to make sure we are staying on top of what's available to keep our products secure.
Yeah, that's actually, so again, that's something that my team supports, and that's some cool technology, because if it's a spoofed cell phone, which is extremely easy to do, the vendor that we work with actually pings the device, and it traces the network to see where it's coming from. But what we're able to do then is show the call rep either a green, yellow, or red background is basically all we do is, but we do all that in the time it takes to get 2 rings. So it takes us about 10 seconds to ping the device, validate that it's actually, so again, I forget what it is, what the percentage of the time is. It's a large number of times that it is the device that it says it is, and then if we've got that phone number in our client database, then the call rep gets a green call screen, so they know they only have to ask one kind of question to make sure you are who you say you are, because again, we're 90% certain it really is that person on that device. So, because again, it would have to be somebody else would have had to gotten a hold of your device and been able to call into the call center on your device, and then we would know okay, maybe it's because you can't answer the question potentially, we would know then that it's not you.
So you use voice authentication over a phone call?
No, that isn't, so that's actually pinging the device itself.
Or just pinging?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Yeah, so it's actually before the call is even answered. We're able to do that, so then when they do answer, when the call rep does answer the phone and they get the person on the phone, they've got a reasonably good chance of knowing it is who they say they are.
How does your implementation compare to other competitors?
So the company, so Dan, the vendor that we work with, they've done a lot of work with USAA, one of our competitors, and usually the competitor who is about best, especially from a mobile perspective, about best in the business. One thing they're doing that we're not, at least not yet, is if you're on the app and you have a question and you want to call somebody, you can call from within the app, and because you're already been authenticated with the biometric through the app, the call center rep, again, if they ping the device and know it's not a spoofed number, the call center rep doesn't even ask you any questions. They know where you were in the app, they know what you were doing, and so then they can say, hey Sumit, I saw you were trying to record a claim, what can I help you with? We're not there yet. We've got, I wouldn't say we've got in-flight projects, but we're certainly having a lot of discussion around that. We call it persistence from channel to channel. So we want to be able to do the same thing if you're logged on to statefarm.com and then you pick your phone up and you call in. We want to know that you were already logged in to statefarm.com, you'd already reached, we call it LOA4, so the highest level of authentication. So again, we're as sure as we can be, you are who you say you are when you were logged in, so that when you call into the call center, we're going to be able to see what you were doing and be able to help you. And not have to go through and re-authenticate you all over again. Because yeah, I mean, our biggest thing, like Sumit said, we get, and it might even be millions of calls a day. If we can make those calls shorter, because we don't have to ask you, so our typical authentication from a phone call is, we call it PBQA, public-based questions and answers. So I don't know if you've ever been through that. I can't ever get them right, because they're asking me, who bought your house? So we just sold our house back in September. I couldn't tell you who it was, and this was back in September. I have no idea who it was. I'd have to look back at the paperwork. So they ask these kind of questions that are, I mean, it's public sort of public information that I don't know the answer to. So those things are a pain. So from a call center rep's perspective, they're spending then probably a minute on the phone just trying to get to figure out that you are who you say you are. And then they're actually able to help you.
And from a customer perspective, the reason they're calling us is not to tell us how great of a job we are doing, right? Typically they're calling because they need help. Either they have a claim and they're already a little bit frustrated. So we want to make their customer experience as best we can, and keeping them on the phone longer is not helping that. So we want to make sure it helps them by getting them what they need in a shortest amount of time. And also, from our productivity and efficiency perspective, we got millions of calls every day, and we got our call center reps that are busy. We want to make sure that we don't need huge workforce to handle that claim. We can make them short, and we are saving money. Then we can pass that same savings to our customers by giving them better rates. So it's a win-win.
Do you get a lot of false claims? Are people posing as people who they aren't?
So from a claim standpoint, I don't know as I've ever seen, I'll put my other hat on, my analytics hat. So one of the applications I was working on prior to joining the customer identity management team it's called social network analysis. So we have our strategic resources area, our research department has developed models, because yes, we do have a lot of fraudulent claims, and they know what those claims look like. So they've developed models that as a claim gets recorded and as it goes through the process, they keep rescoring that claim to see, okay, now does it look like it might be suspicious? And we've got, it's called a screener queue, so they take those claims and they stick them into a screener queue. And today, a year ago, the screener had to go into the claim application, had to look at the file notes and everything they could. just to try to glean enough information to see, is this really a suspicious claim that needs to get forwarded onto a field unit to actually have one of the investigators start opening a case on it? Or is this just something where, yes, there happens to be a large injury, based on the damage to the vehicle, it's probably okay. Yeah, there was a chiropractor involved. Yeah, there's lawyers involved. This looks legit. What we've done is we now have a way for the screeners to actually visualize the claim. So it'll show.
Like a graph.
Yeah. So the claim is in the middle, and then you're going to have a participant, and you're going to have the vehicle, for example. And then what they're able to do is they see, hey, this participant is also on a different claim. And there's another participant hanging off of this one. And on here, this guy might be a medical provider, and over here, he might be a claimant. And then on yet another claim, this guy might be associated, and he's a claimant over here too. And then they start to look at this and say, it looks a little suspicious that this guy is involved in all these different claims. So then they'll send it on to a unit. This is very simplistic. We have ones that look like giant spider webs. As a matter of fact, they've asked us to put in the ability the ability to collapse, because they want to focus in on an area, and then they'll be able to expand it to see, is there more there that they really want to look at. So this is actually production. They're using that today the screeners are to help the investigators then pinpoint, hey, here's, not only is this one that's suspicious, here's probably the person you want to start looking into.
And again, we are using a lot of AI and machine learning to be able to identify these patterns quickly, because there might be some legit pattern which makes sense. Because, okay, you're in a big city and you got these handful of body shops that get a lot of business because they're doing great business. They're gonna show up on multiple claims, and that's a valid scenario. You want to make sure those false positives are not marked every single time, and we are spending more time on saying, oh yeah, this is a good one. We want our models to be able to do that, and we give a very small percentage to our screeners so they can say, okay, yeah, this needs more scrutiny. We'll hand it over to a human, versus somebody we can just pass along and say, yeah, that's check. We can easily pay that claim out. So.
And then I think the other part of your question was, even from a call center standpoint, we have people calling into the call center all the time pretending to be somebody they're not. So that, I mean, again, we are a very large financial organization, so people are going to try social engineering, credential stuffing. You know, all they need is a couple pieces of information about you, and they can get into your account.
Okay.
I was very naive prior to joining this area. I've become very jaded since being here. I was never one to think that the world is a bad place. I'm beginning to think the world is a bad place. Yeah.
So
Good,
this
good.
is a little off the topic of the biometrics.
That's fine.
Last time you were here, you were speaking about the machine learning algorithms you're using for taking pictures of car accidents and determining. I was wondering, like, with your application, are you guys going to be putting that in anytime soon, or is that still in development with the training models? And
So from the adjuster's perspective, we've got that app is out in production. It's not it's not self-service yet.
Okay.
So we want to do a little bit more tweaking of the models to make sure we've got it right before we're going to open it up for self-service.
And then for the machine learning algorithms that you guys are implementing, are you guys using like AWS or like Google Cloud Services, or are you guys using some other like frameworks or anything?
Right now, that's all internal.
Okay.
So those models are actually running internal. I wouldn't doubt, especially with we're getting, so and Sumit talked about this in class earlier today, we're a very risk-averse company. So putting large amount of data in the cloud is still something that we're hesitant to do. It took us probably a year to get through all of this work with Dayon to get, and this isn't, from my perspective, this is minuscule compared to some of the other stuff, but to get this in AWS, because it's just keys. I mean, there's no data here. There's nothing that if somebody were to get into AWS and be able to somehow hack into that database, they couldn't do anything with that data. So some of the other stuff, so running the models in the cloud, we're doing it at an internal cloud today. I wouldn't doubt if long term, we look at, AWS or Google for that.
And there are some active projects that are evaluating those options for us for obvious reasons of being able to use their compute power in an elastic mode. Because if you know, owning, building, and supporting a data center, it's a very costly affair, and we want to make sure we are leveraging the technology that's available on some of the public cloud options. So yeah, AWS, Google Cloud, there.
Microsoft.
Yep, Microsoft
Yeah.
Azure. We're evaluating all of them.
And that's all work that's being done in Phoenix. Just a little
Yep.
plug for Phoenix.
What other question you got? Yeah.
And obviously, we're open to.
Yeah, you can talk any
Yeah,
topic.
Yeah. And if we don't know the answer, we'll make it up.
Sounds about right. That's where we're at.
Otherwise, there's more pizza. People want more pizza?
So we have some younger CS students in ACM. Feel free to plug your guys' internship opportunities and everything if you'd like. I
Sure.
know that some people are actually going to be interns in the room. So.
All right. So, first of all, just show of hand who all are coming back or will be attending State Farm as internship for the first time here. You coming good? And you're the only one? Okay. So, typically our internship program starts in, depending upon where you are, but in Phoenix, you start around end of May, first week of June, and then runs through end of July or first week of August, and it varies every year, depending upon school schedule and what the day of the week is going to be. And we try to allocate those early on in the year, actually the fall of the prior year. So for 2018, we filled those slots late last fall. So we came for the recruiting event and back in the fall recruiting, and then we collected resumes, opened up for people to submit it, and then we had interviews pretty shortly after that. And we had a pretty good interest, and we had a very solid representation from NAU on those. We had a tough challenge of picking a handful of seats. So I see several people in the room that I remember interviewing. So if you didn't get it, it was a very tough selection for our group to pick from. And again, sometimes if you don't get those selection during those fall event, sometimes we have opening come up later in the spring based on sometimes people back out, they got different option, or somebody else maybe from a different school backed out, and now we have an open seat. It happened for U of A recently, so they had several people that backed out, so we went back and added more from that school. So it happens, so don't give up if you don't get it in fall. Spring is typically not the best time, but also good time to check if there's any options. So if you're looking for 2019, be prepared around summer, fall of 2018 to prepare for 2019 internship. And it's a paid internship. Don't quote me on that, but it's the starting hourly wage is about $20 or plus $20 every per hour, and it's 40-hour per week internship. And if you return, I think there's a 50 cent or $1 hike. So if you're a returning intern, you get more money. And if you happen to be placed out of, say, your current locale, so if you happen to be placed in Bloomington, there's some kind of housing allowance provided too. And also for you, even for NAU, say if your permanent address is not within 50 miles of our location in Tempe, there's some incentive provided there as well. And so we have 4 locations. Our headquarters in Bloomington, Illinois, is Central Illinois, which is right between St. Louis and Chicago. So small town, but that's where our large systems presence is at the moment. We have Phoenix or Tempe here in Arizona, Dallas, Texas, and Atlanta. So there's opportunity. I know several people who did internship from NAU. Somebody did in Bloomington, and there was somebody in the class today I was talking to. They did an internship in Bloomington. Somebody I know did it in Phoenix. Now they're working full time in Atlanta. So there's a lot of opportunities, and it's a large IT presence. I mean, I can't stress enough that we are Fortune 50 companies. We have a pretty big IT business, IT shop. So we got over about close to 6,000 employees in the IT. So they are doing various jobs. The software developer is one that we are currently growing. That's a big market we are trying to capture on the from talent pool perspective. But we got jobs in security area, we got jobs in the infrastructure support, data center support, on the database support, DBA kind of roles, business analyst. So there's multiple opportunities within IT at systems. So depending upon what your passions are, what your interests are, it's a great employer. And one of the testament to that is when Dave, I don't know if you mentioned at the very beginning, he's been employed for 30 plus years with State Farm, and he had over 15 different jobs within the company and changing different roles every now and then, continue to grow. I've been with company over 12 years, and I had multiple roles from software developer and pretty much different platforms from VB6 to Java to some mobile, Swift, so I've done all that, project management, and service manager, product IT manager, so I had multiple roles as well, so it's a great employer. So when you do consider, some of you may be graduating this summer, looking for opportunities, Phoenix is growing, there are going to be opportunities, go to statefarm.com/careers, you'll see what are the current opportunities, you'll get a pretty good description of what those are, and if you want to talk to more, want to know more about it, talk to your president, they can probably get you in touch with me or one of our recruiter, and they can help you as well. Questions, yeah?
So within the company, like you said that you've switched around a lot.
Yep.
So say you're working a certain job within the company and you want to switch to an area of interest that you were like interested in, but you have like very minimal experience.
Yep.
Does the company compensate that and like help like kind
Yep.
of like bring you up to speed and give you any education that you
Yeah,
need?
so especially in areas where we need more people. So they will look at your experience in the company, and let's say you're going from doing Java development, and now you want to do work in the analytics space or in the research space, and maybe start doing some big data stuff. They'll look at how well you performed as a developer and say, hey, we're willing to invest in you to learn that new technology. So yeah, it happens all the time. No, it's not as easy as just saying, I'm kind of tired of what I want to do, I want to go do something else. Obviously, there needs to be a need in that area. Like where Sumit came from in IT R&D, a lot of people want to go work in IT R&D because you get to play with cool stuff. And there just aren't that many opportunities. So, that's one where it can be a competitive process. You may have to interview for it. But in general, yeah, it's very easy to move around.
And up until recently, and there may be some changes down the road, but all our entry-level graduates that we bring, regardless of what their major was, they could be CS major or MIS major that joined State Farm. We have a very elaborate and intense Java development training program we send them. It's like 12 weeks and 8 hours every single day. There's a lot of instruction, there's a lot of hands-on labs and quizzes and tests that we do. So, if you think taking a summer class is difficult, this is intense, 8 hours of programming. And sometimes people struggle if they're not fully committed, but it's a great opportunity for them to, they took a class in programming where they maybe created a project, but at the end of their training through State Farm, they feel like they are now a pretty decent developer. They're definitely not comparable to somebody who's been doing this for a long time, but they got pretty good foundation, and we provide them mentoring opportunities, so pair them up with another experienced developer who help them continue to grow. And I have several of them on my team that I lead right now. Actually, I got 3 people from NAU that are on my team.
Okay.
Yeah, you came with Grant so last
Yeah.
time, and he's an NAU grad, and we had pretty successful with NAU students who came to are working for us right now, and they're doing a great job. So whatever your professors are doing, whatever you guys are doing, it's working.
And is that training, is that an internal thing, or are you
Yep.
making use of a boot camp, like a coding boot camp, or?
No, it's an internal training. We partner with another professional training group that's what they are specialized in. We bring them in, but we tailor the training to State Farm needs. So it's tailored to the tech stack we use, the design patterns we use, the tools we use, and we have internal mentors, like our experienced developer. They get to do, now they can be kind of a mentor and a teacher for a class for next 3 months. So that's another opportunity. They enjoy that too. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So that's mostly for people who just graduated, that are looking for a job, and you guys hire them on, you're like, all right, 8 hours a day, 12 weeks, get to it. And then they walk out feeling just fine and confident. Usually most of
Absolutely.
them are fine, good.
And
Awesome, that's fantastic.
I mean, they're happy. They're happy that they're getting this focused learning because
Yeah.
one, they just graduated recently. You're still in the learning mode, and there's nothing better than having a focused. And you're working with another group of people that everybody's pretty much vetted through the interview process. They're all committed, sharp group of people that we brought in, and now we're giving them the training they need to succeed.
We also, I assume we still do tuition reimbursement.
Yep, good.
So when I started, back before everybody in here was born, I just had my bachelor's degree in basically applied computer science, and then started working, and it's like, okay, I kind of missed that aspect of it, the continuous learning. I'm very much into that, so talked to my manager and got approved to work on my master's, so took one class at a time, and took me forever, but as long as I got an A or B, State Farm reimbursed me for it, so they basically paid for my master's. So yeah.
Yep,
it's-
they still do that.
Yep. So
30
it's-
years later,
Yep.
we still do that, and it's a
Now,
great program.
the requirements change, so you have to, it's not like day one you can go in and start doing it.
Yeah.
You've got to be there for a while. There are
I
some
think
other
it's-
stipulations, but.
And it's not that hard to
No.
meet those stipulations either.
No.
I think you have to be there at least a year. Gotta be on a good performance rating. You're
right.
doing well in what your daytime job is
Yeah.
before we say, okay, yeah, we're gonna sponsor you into additional stuff. And also, the major you pick is closely related to the work you
Right.
do.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna be in IT and go get a philosophy master's.
Right.
Don't think they're gonna pay for that. But again, mine was computer science, so stats, math, those kinds of things are all, relevant to what we do. So, and that's actually not just in IT. I know other departments will do the same thing.
Yep.
Where they will, especially so like marketing and our research department, where they're actually wanting people to get their PhDs. So I know a couple people who got their PhDs through reimbursed through State Farm. Because we have that need for, especially like with all the data science work going on, we just have that need. And so it's easier for us to take somebody who's got that passion, has that drive, who we know is a good employee already, and put them through it rather than trying to hire somebody who's kind of an unknown quantity.
And apart from those training, their State Farm sponsors employees to attend different conferences.
Yep.
They can go to different training classes if they're not offered within State Farm. They can, as long as it's relevant and valid, has a valid business case, they sponsor and reimburse those costs too. You can take some insurance like designation that kind of align with, because insurance is the business we are in. So when I recently got a designation in the finance portion of a CHFC, and I went to Hawaii a couple years back, and State Farm paid for that. So it's a great benefit they have.
I can't stress enough how much they're into continuing education. Again, it's got to be relevant to either the company or to your job, but that's huge and has been for the 30 years I've been there. It just, again, I can't stress that enough. They actually, so they can't force you to do it, and there's people who don't. They have no desire to learn the insurance business or go on and do a master's or even go to conferences. But they, as a leadership team, we stress that with our people all the time.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, what's the next thing you want to learn? Where do you want to go next? Certifications, same thing. All of our network people have their certifications. Security people all have a certification. I'm gonna actually, now that I know that I'm staying in this area, I'm gonna work on mine starting this summer. So, and again, it's stuff we've got to do outside of work, so you can't take, it's not part of your day job to do that. But if there's any cost to it, they'll either pay for it up front or they'll reimburse me for it. So.
With that onboarding, you said, so it's like the first 3 months is that training. Are you purely dedicated to working on that training, or are you also like working with State Farm outside of the training for the first 3 months?
So we've tried different models, and I think we found that what works best is when people are focused on the training during that 3 months. So we don't put them on the floor as part of the production work, because one, they're not going to be available because they are in a classroom session. They won't be able to handle production kind of issues that come up or that need prompt action. So, and the team, I mean, we are in a team environment. We use agile practices, small, co-located, persistent team. So if it's a 5-person team, 5 developers working on a team, and one of them is on our training. I mean, the rest of the team can't rely on them, so we're not going to account for them when we plan our work for the next week. So typically, we don't expect them to be on day-to-day work, focus on the training. When they come back, and on day 1, they are getting kind of slowly introduced to their work that need to be supporting going forward, the changes and the capability and new software development they need to do. That's mostly for a software developer if that's the training they're going through, and they got mentors on there to help them grow.
Sorry to ask.
That's fine.
That's all right.
I've heard for your guys' internship, you have like a little hackathon type day. I was wondering if you could talk about that and like what the experience is like and like what you guys expect and.
So yeah, we had the timing of that worked out pretty good last year. It typically happens during summertime, and we have our interns available. They are working on the company. It's a 2-day event. Actually, it's 24-hour event that kind of bleeds into 2 days. So you bring whatever idea that you have, and you can form a team, or you can do it as an individual. You get, if you want an OEM laptop, that means it's not on our standard network, so it's not on our secured network. You can download whatever you need to do that hack, or download any SDK or different tool or plugin. You can do that, and if it's a team effort, fine, you can have a team, and at the end of the 24 hours, then you do a demo, and kind of very quick. I mean, you may have seen other hackathons, so you only get about 90 seconds. So you work 24 hours to develop an idea, get a prototype or something close to it, and then you get 90 seconds to talk about it and demo it to the judges. And then we evaluate it and pick the top say 10, 15, and move them to the next round and give them some little more time if they want to tweak it and do another presentation. And sometimes those ideas that are the top 5, they get funded to be taken to production. So the original creator of that idea may or may not be the one carrying it forward, but say you worked on something that aligns with security or something with the identity management, and you may not be there, that may not be your expertise, but you had a great idea. Dave's team may pick that up and say, okay, yeah, we'll implement it, take it to production. And there's, apart from bragging rights, you get some financial monetary benefit too. You get some award based on what level you got eliminated. And apart from that, I mean, you win or not, I think it's one of the cool experiences. I mean, I try to participate every time I can if I'm here, because sometimes I take vacation during summertime. But if I'm there, it's a 2-day event. It's a great event. There's a lot of energy in the room. There, people are they're staying alive on Red Bulls and Monster drinks and cookies and sugars and whatnot, and they're awake and they're there for 24 hours. It's funny, in my team, I had people join on like first week of June, and like at the second week we had the hackathon. We registered them quickly, and they created the app, and they end up moving to the second round, and they did a great job. And they barely knew all about what State Farm and the groups are, but we had a cool idea, and we had a cool presentation to demo that idea. I was selected.
The claims SNA, it's a little picture I drew up here, that started as a hack day application. Yep. So somebody had the idea that, so does everybody know what the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon is? Right? So every actor is no more than 6 degrees out from Kevin Bacon because of all the movies he's been in. I'm actually 2 or 3, I forget now. So my friend Penny Hallen, her aunt is Penny Marshall. Penny Marshall has been in a movie with Kevin Bacon, so that's how close I am to Kevin Bacon. That's really what they were trying to show, is we want to be able to see these steps out so that from a fraud detection perspective, you can see, hey, you've got, so it maybe isn't somebody who's involved in this claim, but they were involved in 2 other claims that somebody else who's related to this claim was involved in. So that's really how that all started. And then it got punted to R&D, if I remember right. I
Yep.
think that's where
Yep, we did
a
some
lot of the work.
prototyping on some of the tools. So if you have free time or interested in that topic that Dave just mentioned, look at some of the Neo4j. It's one of the graph databases that are available that help you visualize this. And you can download their trial, and it's a pretty cool tool. And
We're actually not implementing it in that, but yeah, that's
Yep.
what the prototypes were done in. Just because a lot of times we'll do those prototypes just to give our consumers, our business partners, an idea of what can be done. Because if you just kind of pitch an idea, it doesn't really mean anything. It's not going to land on them, it's not going to be meaningful. You've got to be able to show them, hey, this is what it looks like. It may not have anything behind it. It may even just be an on-the-glass kind of prototype, but they at least understand the concept a lot better. And then we can work on the plumbing in the back end.
So yeah, a lot of time interns, they form their own team, or sometimes they partner with their mentors or the team that they're part of, and they participate. And I think there were some interns in the second or third round that made it far, and yeah, pretty neat. What other questions do you have?
You guys have a coding competition you do each year.
Yep.
Right? And I was wondering, for your employees, who are the people that design the questions or the problems for that, and like how easy is it to become one of those people, or is it just an extra thing that they do for fun for the company? Or?
It's an extra thing they do for fun, and I used to be part of that up until last year. I was still helping them. So we do that Java coding competition across. I mean, it's open not only to the school that we engage with, it's open to any student who is still got maybe another 12 or 18 months left. I mean, they can't be senior because typically the contest happen around fall time. They still need to have some time because initially it's all online. So what you do is we give you a problem statement, we give you a starter code, and the starter code also has test cases in there. So unit test cases. I don't know if anybody if you've done JUnits or unit testing in there. So we say, okay, this is the problem. These are the test cases we're looking. So now solve that problem so that these test cases pass. And then you submit your code, and myself along with a few other people. And it's again our side gig. I mean, it's not my full-time job. It's something we do on fun. And then we pick the top, I think 7 or 8 employee and participants, or the teams that submitted the code. So it could be a individual, it could be a team of up to two people, yeah. It's a 2-person team. You can be there, and then if you are in the top 8, we fly you in for the next round, and we kind of rotate where that happens. So we had it in Bloomington. Last year it was in Phoenix. Before that it was in Dallas. I think this one may be in Atlanta, they're coming up. And then, so same thing, we bring them in on site now, or kind of the top participants or the contenders from the first round. Similar model, next new set of problem, new set of unit cases. Okay, let's see, and you got a limited amount of time this time. You only get about, I think 4 hours or so. So try to get that done, and we evaluate it again, and you pitch your demo, show it to the group, and we select the judges. Apart from bragging rights, you get kind of goodies, like I think last year we gave some tablets, there's money involved as well. I think the first prize was $800, and apart from that, you get to fly in. It's a big resume builder too, so there's benefit and experience you get to have.
I didn't know we did that.
Mm-hmm.
Been there 30 years, didn't know we did that.
And it's not a 30-year-old thing. I mean, we've been doing that for the last, I think, 6-7 years now. Yeah.
No clue.
Most participants, those are only college students, I'm assuming. right?
Yep. It's all college. I mean, anywhere from freshman to sophomore, or even a junior. You're not going to graduate in the summer, or a senior who may have some part of it left. You can still participate. All right. If you don't have any other questions, I think
All right, well, thank you so much for coming, and for pizza, of course, and everyone from the ACM Club, thank you for joining us in the FCB. Please feel free to stick around for any other questions, or if you just want to chat. And yeah, have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.